Hi, and welcome to RecoverED, a podcast from the Magdalen House, a recovery community for alcoholism. We're a 501c3 nonprofit in Dallas, Texas, lovingly known by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we drop a new episode from one of our 3 podcast series. In RecoverED, we share education for the community on alcoholism, our programs, and resources for alcoholics and their loved ones. In each episode, you will get to know more about the disease of alcoholism and the solution. I'm your host, Laura Wilson, a recovered alcoholic and the communications manager here at Maggie's. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for listening.
So first of all, my name is Lisa Kroencke, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 2nd of 2007, and so I'm really grateful to be here. We started these workshops a long time ago. The purpose of the workshops was really to help have a deeper understanding of the principles of the Big Book and the principles of this program. Something that we really don't get to touch on in First Step. We minorly get to touch on it in Next Step. So if you're not in Next Step or you're interested in Next Step, that is really a program I highly recommend that you look into after you depart First Step, or even if you're anyone in the community. You do not have to be a First Step graduate to do Next Step. But that's where we do a deep dive into steps 4 through 12 and some of the principles surrounding that. This particular workshop is specifically for a module that we have, traditions and relationships. And so what we have is Next Step is peer implemented. So it's very similar to First Step. And we have these supportive tools that we use to support each module. So this particular module, this particular workshop is going to support that module. We're recording it so that the recovered alcoholic who's leading Next Step, if you're interested in doing that, please see us afterwards too, because that's really fun. Has supportive materials to make sure that everybody in that program can get the best information possible. Not that I am like the arbiter of good information. That's not what I mean. It's just I'm really old and I've been around for a long time, so I've done this a couple of times. Okay, first I want to say, so let's get started on the module. Let's get started on this podcast, workshop, whatever you want to call it. I've done this a couple of times, and I will say that this is kind of a spirituality 301. So if you're new in recovery, and there's a lot of people in here who are in the men's house or in the women's house, you're probably not going to get a lot of these principles. And actually, I don't even know if I want you to, because you really need to be focused on steps 1, 2, and 3. Once you get through step 12 with your sponsor, there are things, tools, principles that will help deepen your understanding and help you to carry the principles and actually tactical, pragmatic things that you can do out there to build your conscious contact with God, but also to help bear witness to others around you. When I first got into AA, when I got into AA after I recovered, I will say that, because I didn't like AA at first. It took me a really long time to get the traditions. I remember being in so many meetings where the people would start going over the traditions, and I would roll my eyes, and I would think, oh my God, this is going to be the boringest meeting. And people would talk about the traditions, and I really didn't understand the importance of them. I mean, I heard about them, and until I got a little bit deeper into my recovery, I started this appreciation of the traditions. Kind of like the chapter 2 wives and 2 employers. I used to roll my eyes at those chapters too. And so anyway, that's a whole nother workshop. But the traditions have a significant importance to the growth of our recovery. And it's not just for people in recovery. It's for anyone who wants to deepen their spiritual journey by bearing witness to others. This shows me specifically how to do that. My first traditions workshop was actually done by my sponsor. And if I look back in my book, because I'm like a note taker, my book is completely marked up. But most of the notes that I have from that first traditions workshop, which blew my mind, are in here, and they're actually from my own sponsor. I talked to her this morning about this, just to kind of reiterate some of the things that I was going to talk about. So I think it's really important that we can do a Q&A afterwards, but if you have any questions, this is an opportunity to deepen your relationship with your own sponsor too. So if we do get into the Q&A and I'm like, well, that's probably a question you need to ask your sponsor, don't be upset. I'm trying to deepen that relationship too so that you guys can help form a bond, okay? So the one thing I wanted to start out with, there is a saying that is one of my favorite sayings. I bought this bracelet. I have this leather bracelet. It was like in month 2 or 3 of my recovery, and I've worn it almost every day since. And I know this is not in the book, but it's really important. It's Gandhi. And the phrase is, be the person. Well, what is it? I got to read it. Be the change that you want to see in the world. Be the change that you want to see in the world. I think the principles around these traditions help me to be the person. Instead of expecting everyone else to be the change, to be the person, it helps for me. When I was starting to read or study the traditions, I thought the traditions were about how the group followed the traditions. That's the polar opposite of how the traditions were formally written in the 50s. It was how the individual can follow the traditions to help the group grow. So about 10 or 15 years ago, there was this article blog about how traditions really affect relationships, not just within AA. It's like the steps. If we say the steps are just about AA and alcohol, we all know if we've been through the steps, we know those steps are transformative, not just in the way that we live as people who are alcoholic, but it affects everything about our DNA. The traditions are the same way. They're not limited to how we act in a group or setting. They're actually how we can act better in relationships. So how do I be the change that I want to see in the world? These traditions help. So I'm going to do something very strange, but this helped me to understand it. I'm going to go to do tradition 12 first to help us better understand tradition 1. One of the things that my sponsor says a lot, which I love this, is that the spiritual substance of humility is anonymity. The spiritual substance of humility is anonymity. And humility in tradition 12 guarantees the unity of tradition 1. I hope that you guys have read the traditions before you got here, because I'm not really going to go over that. I'm going to go over each one of them, but I hope that you guys have done a little bit of study in them. If you haven't, and you're in first step and you're here, you can do it when you get out. Like I said, this is Spirituality 301. So personal distinction, we give that up in tradition 12, which helps us to better understand tradition 1. So I'm going to read tradition 12, and I'm going to go over it at the end too, to kind of wrap it in a bow. And finally, we at Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the spiritual of anonymity has an immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we are to place principles before personalities, that we are to actually practice a genuine humility, thus to the end that our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of him who presides over us all. That's the grand solution of this entire thing. Now, I'm going to start with tradition 1, and we'll start getting into the practical application of what this means. I'll read the tradition, the short form, not the long form, and then I'll go over it really quickly. It won't take probably an hour. Some of these traditions are very clearly applicable. Some of them are a little bit of a stretch, like someone's kind of made that tradition, but I'm going to kind of go over those just in the way that I was taught. But we'll get through this. So, and then if you have anything that you want to ask, write it down, and then we'll talk about it at the very end, okay? Because I'm thinking that as we go through this, some of your questions might be answered. Okay, tradition 1 is found on page 562 in the 4th edition. Our AA experience has taught us that, tradition 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. So as I said before, in my experience, lack of humility creates this disunity. one of the things that I talk about a lot around step one, because step one really lays out the problem in a very clear way. Tradition one also lays out in a very clear way the problem, usually in a group or problem in a group setting, the problem in relationships. How do I show up in my relationships? What this tradition is addressing is that to be open-minded that perhaps lack of humility could be the problem causing the disunity in relationships, in any kind of group setting. It's not just with our families, it's at work, it's everywhere we go where there's another human being in front of you, okay? Not alone. I talk about a lot that the problem obviously is lack of power in the steps, but the problem the problem I see in relationships is complete deflation of the ego. We talk about that in the steps in relationship to, like there's no bottom, there's no bottom. Like if you think you've hit bottom, things can get worse, believe me. But what happens when we get really desperate is we have complete deflation of the ego. I'm out of ideas. That same principle relates to tradition one. My ego is out of the picture. I am open-minded to maybe I am the problem in this relationship. No matter what you've said or done, I'm going to be open-minded that maybe my lack of humility, maybe my ego is getting involved and causing the issue in any kind of relationship that we're in. Our common welfare must come first over my own needs and desires. I say this all the time if I sponsor you. So I know a couple of you guys have heard this. There are three parts of a relationship. There is your desires, there are my desires, and the most important part is our collective desire. Always three. Just like there's always three sides of the truth, your truth, my truth, and then the facts. It's the same kind of concept. My desires, your desires, and the common desire. So I'm going to introduce that concept here. We'll go back to it frequently as we're going through the traditions. So what is best for the relationship? Not just me. Whenever I'm trying to focus on me and what's best for me, this causes disunity. In the steps, one of the principles is constant thought of others. That relates to this tradition. It talks about our common welfare, right? You, me, our common welfare. And when I'm thinking about myself only, I'm not thinking about the common welfare. My humility gets in the way, or lack of, my ego gets attached to it. And so therefore, disunity is caused. That's how this relates to relationships in the group, all right? All right, so that introduces the problem. The problem is lack of unity, all right? Tradition two. I'll read it. Short form is actually longer than the long form, which is kind of weird, but welcome to AA. Tradition two, per our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. There is so much in that. It is good. This is called what I call this tradition is like a leadership change. Higher power, whatever your higher power is, and my higher power becomes my leader in my life. The one that leads at all decisions that I make. I was just talking to my sponsor about that this morning. When I start to take the power away from a relationship because I want what I want when I want it, that starts to cause disunity. Then it becomes about me. So many times I've talked about servant leadership here in these rooms. And this was something a principle that was introduced to me too after I got into Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a great book called Leaders Eat Last. And it's about servant leadership. And in the military, if you're an officer, the higher up you are, you eat last in the cafeteria. The people who are under you eat first. That's how they display the servant leadership in that environment. Having that same principle that I'm going to allow somebody else, whether I like it or not, to go first, to lead, that creates a servant leadership dynamic within a relationship. Instead of, I know this probably goes against some kind of misogynistic theory here, but equality in a relationship, at least for me and what these traditions say in AA itself, is incredibly important. There are no leaders in AA. There are people who have a lot of experience. But if someone represents themselves as a leader, I mean, come on, do you want that on your resume? I'm the leader of a bunch of drunks. I mean, that's your ego involved. The same thing goes for a family. Yes, my husband is really good with money and really good with numbers. I'm not. But I can bring emotional quotient into our relationship that he doesn't have. He would be right here agreeing with me. So we have strengths and weaknesses within the relationship. It's not an imbalance of power, but we look to that. We look to each other to create and fill in the voids of our strengths and weaknesses. And when I do that, like with money or with numbers or with discipline or the things that I am not strong, I'm okay with him taking the lead in that. Just like he's okay with me taking the lead and having an emotional discussion with my boys. He's not going to do that very well. In the power dynamic, before we really started using these these traditions kind of, or these principles within our relationship, we struggled with power. I thought allowing him to make decisions about certain things that he was strong about was making me weak. He really did not want to, he wanted to be involved with all the decisions. He wanted to have these conversations with the boys when we were talking about emotional stuff with girlfriends. But you know what? He stopped doing that. And he's okay. It's not a weakness or a power shift. It's just really embracing the strengths and weaknesses within our personalities so that we make a better fit. So this higher power thing, this ultimate authority, that is who my husband and I, and any relationship that I have that follows this, that's who we look up to. That is the ultimate authority. I don't have to be the authority. I don't have to be the know-it-all. I don't have to, although I like to, I'm just saying that. Although, digress. I don't have to be anymore. That power dynamic has been leveled out. And I'm telling you, there's so much peace in that I don't have to, my ego can be rocked to sleep, that there is no power dynamic there. And that's not the way that it used to be before all of this before we started really looking at our relationship as him, me, and us. So I really love the step 2. One of my favorite sayings in step 2 is, I don't know. In the tradition 2, I need to be comfortable with saying, I don't know, that's your expertise, help me. And asking for help and not looking at it as a weakness, but as an open-minded to, I'm going to say, I don't know, so that I can be a learner. I can be open-minded. I can walk the walk, and my husband can be open-minded too. I'm telling you, think about this in your relationships. Have you struggled with certain decisions or any kind of knowledge base that you want to have? Like, if you were to listen to somebody and you can't wait to talk, you're not even listening to them because you want to interject what you know. This specific tradition helps relax that need to be the know-it-all, because God is the ultimate authority. Not me, not my husband, but we can fill in the blanks and the weaknesses around that. This is a really good principle that I use here a lot. Is pausing. When I feel like I need to be the know-it-all, or I need to have an answer, or I want to interject something that I feel really strongly about, especially this principle is gonna be for a lot of these discussions around traditions. I will pause, talk to God, and come back to the situation. I'm going to talk about pausing a lot in a couple of these, but pausing in this particular one, when I feel like I need to lead and not let somebody else lead, is a huge tactical principle that I can actually utilize in this. Really, it's all about trusting God. Even if you don't trust the other person wholly, it's about trusting God. And so that, I call this tradition the leadership change, because I no longer have to lead. God is the leader, the ultimate authority, but we can both be okay with balance of that, what I perceived was power or weakness. All right. So that's tradition 2 in relationships. All right. Tradition 3. This is a good one. Some of these are really strong, some of them are not so strong. I particularly like this one. All right. The book says, tradition 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. Desire. That's a word that I pull out of that tradition when I'm talking about relationships. Tradition 3, the mutual desire. So when I'm going into AA, the only membership requirement is a desire to stop drinking, right? When I'm going into a relationship of any kind, I've got to look at the mutual desire to be in that relationship. In other words, I can't force someone to be in a commitment with me no more than I can force myself to want to stop drinking. The desire has got to come from within. I can't force someone. Believe me, have you ever forced someone to try to change their mind, to be in a relationship with you, or I'm going to say this in a different way so that you might hear me. I'm going to force a desire for any kind of decision or relationship or anything that I want that I think you need. That's that mutual desire. It's got to be something that, it's just a respect for the truth. My truth, your truth, someone may not agree with me, and I've got to respectfully be okay with you not agreeing with me. And that's also in another tradition too. But this desire to be in a relationship has got to be mutual. Have you ever been at work when you're having a disagreement with someone, and you're trying to get them to see your side of it? That's not a mutual desire. That is my ego coming back and presenting lack of humility, and it's going to cause disunity. So this mutual, I've got to be able to see that when someone's not agreeing with me and be okay, this mutual desire to be in the moment. I can't force someone, let me tell you this, and force someone to be in that moment. Does that ring a bell with anyone? That's exactly what this tradition relates to. What are my motives to be in this moment? Am I really trying to be helpful, constant thought of others, or am I trying, my motive is to get you to change your mind so that you will desire what I desire? All right? Okay. All right. That's it. Respect. I love that, respect for the truth. Okay. Tradition 4. This is kind of a strange one. Let me read the tradition first. I'm going to. Each group has that's not it. Each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. I call this one autonomy with responsibility. Let me explain. I need to be okay. I need to be free to be who I am without causing harm to other people. This is a great point where I talk about critical thinking. Like, what is my decision that I'm about to make, or my thing that I'm about to say, gonna affect you? Like, am I really thinking, critically thinking, like, how is this gonna affect someone else before I open my mouth? Another constant thought of others. In the tradition 4, within the confines of AA, if you look at the history, there's a whole background story to it. But have you ever heard of Rule 62? If you haven't, you need to go read about it, because it's pretty funny, actually. It's a whole Bill Wilson thing about wanting to start a bunch of hospitals and make some money off AA. Anyway, Dr. Bob put a stop to that. But Rule 62 came about because it was 61 rules that Bill had about starting these hospitals. And his group came back to him and said, well, you know what? We've got a Rule 62. And Rule 62 was, don't take yourself so seriously. It's related to this tradition, and it's related to relationships, because I need to be free to be myself, but don't take myself so seriously that I am going to cause harm by saying something or doing something that I'm not critically, like I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'm taking myself so seriously that I need for you to be who you are, and I'm going to change who I am in that relationship. Autonomy, I can be who I am and not take myself so seriously, with responsibility, because I'm going to constantly think about what your needs are too. If nothing else, if you don't hear anything I say about that tradition, is don't take yourself so seriously. There is no right or wrong way to do something. Now, of course, there are laws to follow. I'm not being really 100% literal in that, but go with me for a second. Whenever I think I'm so right about something, am I really being open-minded to hearing what somebody else's side is, or am I taking myself so seriously that I want you to do what I want you to do? I love that because it allows me to be open or to be vulnerable in situations, to be who I am, and you can be who you are, but we're not taking all of this so seriously that we can't be open-minded to listen. All right. Tradition 5. Each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who suffers. Personally, I think between Tradition 12 and Tradition 5 are the two most important traditions, I believe, within the confines of AA. But this particular tradition, what is our primary purpose here in this relationship, in this group that I'm a part of? My real purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. Losing sight of this, relationships turn into power struggles, emotional battlegrounds. Whenever I am trying to control the outcome of something, I am forgetting that my real purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service to others. And when I forget that, it causes drama, it causes power struggles, it causes arguments and battlegrounds. So I have to always remember, whether you're observing that or not, it doesn't matter. My purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service, whether you're doing that or not. I get so caught up. I say get so caught up. I used to get more caught up, but I still get caught up in transactions in relationships. I will do that if you do this first, or I'm reacting to something that you did, and so therefore that's my justification. Transactional relationships. But my primary purpose, I can never forget it, is to fit myself no matter how you act. That is what a spiritual being does. That is the indication of a spiritual awakening. There's so much humility around that, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to talk about that when we get to 12. Can't forget that. All right. Primary purpose. I can never forget that. Tradition 6. Ooh, this is a good one. I like this Tradition 6 in relationships better than I like the tradition in AA, but whatever. All right. An AA group ought never to endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. I call this tradition about motives. I am so into seeking, I still am, seeking validation and security, my identity, how you perceive me. I still do that today. I get validation in you telling me I did a great job. We were at this Mahjong tournament yesterday, and I had to get up and speak. And I remember turning around. I forgot who it was. I turned around. Maybe it was Tina. I don't remember. And I'm like, how would that go? Did it sound okay? That's not. I caught myself going, oh my God, there I get. There's my ego. I want her to tell me how great I talk so that I get to feel all good about it. That my motives for asking her that were not about what was great for the group. My motives for asking her that was because my ego needed to be fed. I want you to ask yourself in any kind of question, any kind of discussion, or any kind of group interaction that you're a part of, what are my motives for being here? What are my motives for this conversation? I didn't ask that yesterday. Look, this is about practice, not perfection, because you're going to screw up. And every time you mess up, it's not a failure. I need for you guys to understand this. It took me, and it's still, I do this. There's no shaming here. Anytime I make a mistake or don't do this right, the bottom line is I find it objectionable now. I get to see it. Before, when I would ask for validation, I justified it. Of course I'm going to ask for validation because I want her to tell me what I did wrong so I can do it better next time. BS. That is not why I'm asking. I can see that now. That's what the program of AA has done for me, is to open my eyes. When I do something, it's not a mistake, it's how you repair it. That is the indication of someone who's spiritually fit. So, motives. I place the burden. Oh, this is another thing. If I'm getting my validation or my security from you, think how much burden I'm putting on you to make me happy. That's selfish and self-centered. That's a burden. And if you don't fulfill that, then I'm going to blame you because I'm not happy. What a burden that we've done to the people in our lives all throughout our drinking was put the burden on them, whether it was them that we were drinking because of or them that we weren't unhappy, and all of that burden shifts. So then I can take that back, and my security, my validation is not centered on you. It keeps me free because who I am is not tied into you. But also it relieves the burden of my family. It relieves the burden of the person I'm in a relationship with, so that they don't have to feel like they have to make me happy all the time. Or if I'm not happy, it's not their fault. So I call this tradition, and I really love it because I don't have to, my happiness is not whether you're happy or not, and the vice versa. Motives. All right. Tradition 7. This is one of my favorites too. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. If you haven't read the long form of Tradition 7, it's one of my favorites. So please take a moment after this and go over the long form. I always say this is the self-support. This is obviously the self-supporting tradition, but this tradition, I find so much support, so much foundation in this with my children. So I call this the kid one. Self-supporting through our own contributions. Am I supporting this relationship emotionally, spiritually, physically? How am I supporting it? Not expecting you to give anything back to me. Again, it's about motives, transactions, all the stuff that we talked about earlier. But I use this a lot with my children, because when Dave and I, when my husband and I start to give, enable our kids, whether it's emotionally, financially, physically, they don't appreciate it as much as something when they can do it on their own. It's almost like if you give a man a fish or you teach a man a fish. I've seen this over and over and over again in my own lives. When I'm giving my children something, like, say, buying them, I don't know, whatever, like buying them a membership somewhere, or buying them something that I think that I have the financial ability to do it, so I do it. You know what? they don't appreciate as much. And then guess what? I get pissed because they don't appreciate it. The whole reason why I did it in the first place was for my own ego, because I wanted that affirmation to be lifted up again. I really didn't do it for them. I did it under the guise of I want them to put me on a pedestal. I want them to revere, to thank me, to be beholden. And then when they don't act the way that I want them to act, my husband gets pissed off too, but I get pissed off, you know? And then I'm the one who got the ball rolling in the first place. And then they don't act the way I want them to act. Self-supporting through our own contributions is enormous. There's so many reasons why this works in Alcoholics Anonymous, because we are not a business. The same way it works in relationships. If I allow someone to be self-supporting through their own contributions, I am giving them the freedom that they can say, you know what, I did that on my own. And I'm constantly having to ask that when we're talking about Christmas or whatever it is. Are we really enabling the behavior of them in being insincere? Because I do that. I enable their behavior, and then I blame it, turn around, blame it on them. Self-supporting through our own contributions is a huge principle. And if I can follow that individually, then everybody around me is going to be happier. Because they get to feel, God, that's the best feeling in the world. Do you remember that first thing that you got to buy on your own, that you got to take responsibility? Like, I did this, like a milestone. And when I allow someone else, when I give it to someone else, I am taking that away from them. I'm not giving them. But you know what I get out of it? My ego gets fed. Self-supporting their own contributions. All right, tradition 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. Oh gosh, okay. This relationship this tradition relates to healthy roles and boundaries. This is about why it's called that we employ special workers. The boundary of that is, yes, we can pay someone, but within our AA universe, within healthy relationships, I've got to respect boundaries. Theirs and mine. The crazy part of this is the best example I can use is I've got to learn how to say no. That was one of the hardest things, especially early in recovery, because I thought I had to say yes for everything, to everything. When someone asked me to do something, you never say no in AA. You need to talk to your sponsor about that, because there are boundaries that create balance within the family unit. And this goes to my kids asking me things, I get to say no. My husband asking me things, I get to say no. I get to thoughtfully think about it and create a healthy boundary. That's okay. Because maybe in some circumstances, you need to create a healthy relationship. Honoring, look, when I'm talking about boundaries, I also really want, for me, I have to understand that I have to listen to all voices and respect other people's opinions. Just because I don't agree with them, my role or my boundary, doesn't mean I can't listen to them and be a good listener, whether I agree with them or not. What I mean by that is if I'm listening to someone and I disagree with them, I don't have to tell them. Because see, when I start to input my opinion, then these boundaries are crossed and I'm not a good listener anymore. I want you to listen to my opinion. That creates a healthy, unhealthy boundary that I've crossed when someone just wants me to listen. Now, I shouldn't say that. Most women in this room understand when you're trying to talk to someone, whether it's your partner, your husband, even a friend, and you just want them to listen, but they want to give you a solution. Okay? How many times have we done that? I know I have. I still do it. I'm a solution girl. You know what? Nobody ever wants my opinion all the time. Nobody wants my solution all the time. Healthy boundaries, healthy rules. This is a really important for me, at least, because I can scooch into your aisle all the time and thinking that I'm doing good because you need to hear what I've got to say. And you know what? My sponsor tells me this all the time. You don't have to have all the answers, and you don't even have to talk when someone asks you a question. Maybe you just need to listen. I don't like that. I'm a solution-oriented, critical thinker. I'm going to help you, and us, me, you, us. Sometimes my role is just to listen, and that creates a healthy boundary. And you know what else it creates? Trust. Because my husband or my kids will open up to me and talk to me knowing they're not going to get a lecture or any kind of input unless they ask. I become a better parent, a better wife, a better friend when I become a better listener. I create a healthy role in that relationship and a healthy boundary, and it creates trust. My friend's going to come back to me. My kids are going to talk to me. My husband's he's going to open up and be vulnerable, knowing that I will just listen and not have to have a solution. All right. Tradition 9. Yeah, this is me too. All right. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. This is about guidance, and that's what that tradition's all about. It's not control, it's about guidance. In other words, leadership is about encouragement. A true leader encourages and doesn't dominate. That's what that tradition's talking about. I can offer suggestions, just like in Tradition 8. I can offer suggestions, share experiences, set boundaries, and I can even let go of control. And when I do that, I create guidance, not control. I don't have to control every situation that I come into. Tradition 8 and Tradition 9 are very similar in that way. This healthy relationship, I want a healthy relationship in creating boundaries, and this tradition tells me exactly how to do that. I am looking to guide, not dominate, and not control. I don't know what my motives are. I'm constantly having to ask that in any relationship. But this particular, like I said before, that guidance, not control, creates a space for trust, for deep trust. And it's a really beautiful thing. All right. Tradition 10. Ooh, this is a good one. Okay, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never to be drawn into public controversy. All right, public controversy. I call this tradition calamity with serenity in relationships. Oh my gosh. Have you ever looked at Facebook and you're looking at people's comments and you're like, oh my God, don't engage. Oh, she's going to engage, right? I don't have to engage in every conflict. That is the polar opposite. If you've known me for 5 seconds, I need to have the explanation to every conversation that we have. Exclamation point. I have to be the last person to comment. I want to engage in conflict. As a matter of fact, I kind of brag about it sometimes. Like, oh, I'm the sassy one. I'm going to get on, blah, 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 whatever. That is so not healthy. It's not. My opinion, I heard this this morning, or stance on issues does not have to be heard every time. It's okay to not say anything when you are in the middle of Thanksgiving and your in-laws or your friends start talking about a political thing that you disagree with. You don't have to engage. I'm telling you, when I wake up the next morning and I've gotten into an argument about politics at Thanksgiving, I wake up the next morning, I'm always in regret. But whenever I don't say anything, I allow that person to think that they beat me or that they are smarter than me, I wake up the next morning and I'm good with God. I'm good to go. I don't have regrets over that. This is matching calamity with serenity. I can choose restraint over reaction. I can't choose whether I'm going to drink or not, but I can choose whether I'm going to react or respond. It really helps in your 10 steps too for your fourth column. I'm just saying. Anyway, the other part of that, so the flip side of that, is when I'm wrong, I have got to admit it. When I'm hurt, this is a huge principle. When I'm hurt, instead of seeking retaliation, I can seek understanding. When I'm wrong, I can promptly admit it. Can you do that? Can you pause and say, I'm sorry, I should not have opened my mouth? Whether the person is right or wrong, or whether you're right or wrong, remember, we are supposed to, as a bearing witness, fit ourselves to be of maximum service, no matter how you act. And I'm telling you, this is one of the hardest principles to follow. But when you do, the next morning, when you wake up on your knees talking to God, you will have no regrets by not saying anything. Now, of course, there are extreme situations where you have to react. That's not what I'm talking about here. So your mind should not go to, well, Lisa, you said, I'm not talking absolutes. I'm talking about relationships. Okay? I'm not going to get into that. It keeps your ego in check. This is another one. Okay. I can disagree with someone with respect. I can treat them with respect accordingly. This is America. This is what we're made of. We are made of people who have different opinions, different disagreements, different personalities, different cultures, That's what's so beautiful about this, is that we can all be in a room, disagree, but say, hey, how about those Cowboys? I know they're terrible, whatever. But you know what I mean? Well, we can change it and go, you know what? And the bottom line is, and I have explored this for the last 48 hours more than I have in a very long time. When did we get to the point where we just forget that we are alive? And most alcoholics die from this thing. And we forget, because we have to be right, that we have to tell our side of the story. But if we go back to the bottom line, the bigger picture, man, we should be happy that we're alive, that we get to have the arguments, that we get to feel, Because isn't it a beautiful thing to be able to feel again and not have to drown it out in alcohol? Even if we don't like what you're saying, and even if we don't like you, at least we get to feel. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm telling you, it helps me get closer to God. If I like you a lot, I'm not talking to God about you. But if I don't like you, you know what? It's a conscious contact situation where I'm talking to God about you. Just saying. So if you can look at it that way, you're helping me get closer to God. You jerk. I love that. All right, tradition 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. This is a big one. We need to always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. Oh my gosh, I'm going to probably talk the longest about this one. I call this attraction through action. Actions speak for themselves. Words do not. How many times have I told my kids that in the last week? Intentions are different than actions. Trust grows when I show someone I have changed, not tell someone I have changed. And I'm stealing this from a guy in our group the other night, home group. I have this most beautiful statement. Spiritually awakened people don't tell you they're spiritually awakened. It's attraction rather than promotion. How many times in your life, Well, how many times in my life have I said, you know what? I did that. Oh, I still do it. I did that. I take accolades for all that. Like, I want someone to like me because of the things that I do, rather than just showing up and be the person in the back and doing it because it's the right thing to do and not have all the accolades for it. Attraction rather than promotion. I like promoting myself because of my insecurity. If I were a very secure person, my husband is one of the most secure people I have ever met in my life. He is humble to a fault, in my opinion. So we make up for that. Remember the balances, right? Because I'm not humble. But the thing is, that man is he's great at golf. But how many times have I heard him say, oh, I'm still learning? And me, he shot an 85. And I'm like, dude, you shot an, you go tell everybody. He was like, I don't need to tell them I shot that. I'm just going to work on it. Okay, who does that? Not me. But that's so attractive. When I turn around and look back on it, what's more attractive? Him saying, though, I'm still learning. I've got a lot to learn. Or me going, well, I shot an 85. You like that? Do you see what I'm saying? That I would never have seen that before until this principle. Attraction rather than promotion. How many times have you taken accolades for something that you did and it was a beautiful thing? But never forget, the best thing that I do is drink. I told God in step 7 that I would give him the good and the bad. The good, all accolades go to God, not to me, because I should be dead. I can never forget that. And I forget it on a minute-by-minute basis. I'm just saying. But how cool is that? That I find that objectionable. Me promoting myself. Your people around you are watching you too. If we walk around saying, I'm in a spiritual program of action, I'm in the people, and you talk about being spiritually awakened in the spiritual program of action, people are watching you. So are you promoting yourself? Are you promoting the spiritual way of life by anonymity? Remember, the spiritual essence of humility is anonymity. Self-promotion, believe me, I'm the worst. Also, trust grows when I show people that I've changed instead of tell them. When I was drinking, I lied all the time. I didn't lie the morning that I told my husband I was never going to drink again. I did believe that. But I lied about how many times I went to the liquor store and used a credit card, all kinds of things I lied about. And that created distrust. When I can create an environment where I'm not telling him I'm changed, I show him I've changed by carrying the message, by helping other alcoholics, by shutting my mouth and being a bitter listener. All of these principles that we've just talked about are ways that I can show my husband, my family, my relationships at work that I am a changed person. And then someone's going to want what you have, and they're going to ask you, wow, you're a different person. What happened? And then we have set the hook. And then we can tell them, program of action. Do good things and you don't have to talk about it. Do good things. That's what we're supposed to do. Why am I getting a trophy or accolades for acting the way I'm supposed to? I want that because I'm insecure and my ego gets fed by that promotion. That is not good for the relationship. It's good for me for a second. It's almost like a really good carb, a bunch of chips, which I ate on the way over here, whatever. It feels good in the moment, but is it really long-term good for you? That's exactly what this principle is about. I'm going to feel good in the moment, but I'm going to feel like crap later on because I'm taking the accolades for something that I should not. Yeah, do good things. We don't need the accolades for them. All right. Tradition 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Anonymity. This is all about the sacrifice of personal gains. If I continue to take the credit for all the things that I have done, I am insulting God. I am practicing lack of humility. It's crazy what that whole saying that your real character is what you do when no one's looking. That's what this is all about. I always wanted to have the attention. I'm still an attention-seeking person. But I always thought that that was so fulfilling. And this whole entire tradition is all about the spiritual substance of humility is anonymity. That I can truly act in a humble and humility-filled way if I don't need to tell you what I've been doing. That's going to feed the relationship. It's not going to feed my ego, but it's going to feed the relationship and make it stronger. I don't like extreme. I really try to live in the principles before personalities. I have a big personality. And the one thing that I have really trained myself is if I'm in a conversation with someone, this is just a practical application. If I'm in a conversation with someone and I can tell I'm overwhelming them, I can tell that I am overly exuberant or passionate or in their face, I can have the humility, right, to pull back and I'm still who I am, but I can see that, and I'm okay with pulling back. I don't have to be in someone's face. I can be anonymous in that moment and pull back and not have to be the big person I am. Like, I have to remain anonymous in certain times in my life to remain humble. Watch people's reactions to you sometimes. Have self-awareness around that. It's a really good teaching tool because I have to sacrifice all of my personality traits in order sometimes for you to feel more comfortable. And this is all about, I'm telling you, if you try to do that, if you watch that, it will help you grow. It's like an internal conversation. I can be anonymous and not be this big personality, because the spiritual substance of humility is anonymity. Now I'm going to go back to tradition 1. So if the problem is disunity in a relationship, what's causing this disunity? Can I sit back and be anonymous in the relationship, or do I have to have this big personality? Can I sit back and let someone else take the lead? This humility keeps me teachable. It keeps me teachable. And that teachable, like step 2, keeps me humble because I don't know everything. And that part of this particular, which I love this, anonymity. There's so many pieces of this that are important. It keeps me humble. And it changes me. It changes. That's one of the reasons this whole thing has changed my DNA. Is because I no longer think that that's an attractive attribute, is to get in someone's face and be this big personality and this strong. And no, pull back. God is in charge. Let that lead and not me. Anonymity of my personality. Anonymity of so many things that I think are important. One of the things that I talked about in the beginning of this is be the change. that you want to see in the world. I want to have healthier relationships. I want to have a healthier work environment. I want to have a healthier relationship with the God of my understanding. And I cannot do that unless I'm open-minded to growing every single day and not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And sometimes it makes me really uncomfortable to not answer your question or to not have my opinion or to not argue or to say, I don't know. But if I can do that, these spiritual principles have been around for thousands of years. If I can do that, what is assured is that I will have more unity in the relationships that I'm in. Not my opinion. It is certainly my experience. Like I said in the beginning of this thing, I really did not understand what the traditions were about. I thought they were all kind of boring. And so that I hope that by studying this and looking at them from a different perspective, just like we look at our lives, just like we look at our past, just like we look at everything in our lives, be open-minded to a different perspective, a different way to act, react, respond in relationships. And I'm telling you, the motive is not for you to be happy. The motive is to bear witness, right? But the outcome, my husband and I divorced at 2 years sober. When I was 2 years sober. He went on his way. I went on my way. And the craziest thing is we grew spiritually without each other. And then we came back and decided to try again. And people will ask me, so, oh my gosh, isn't it so great to have your relationship back? And I'm like, no, I don't have that person back. You know what? He's a different person, but bigger than that, I'm a different person. And the cool thing about that is that God makes it such so that we are always changing, always evolving, if we're open-minded to change. That's the key. And for alcoholics, alcohol gets us to a place where we get open-minded. And these traditions, like I said, I don't expect if you're new in recovery to understand some of this stuff or even understand why it's important. But once you start living in the steps and you start living in 10, 11, 12, I don't know about you, but I wanted to continue to grow. Practical applications of these principles in everyday life. And when I was in this workshop, that's why I wanted to bring this here, because it helped me to grow, to understanding and effectiveness, not with just myself, but with everyone around me. Okay, like I said, the personal distinction, we give up in tradition 12. All right.
All right, well, let's go ahead and give an applause.
Thanks for listening to RecoverED. If this episode has offered hope, clarity, or comfort to you, please consider making a donation to the Magdalen House. By paying it forward, you help make sure the next alcoholic gets the same chance, completely free. You can give anytime at magdalenhouse.org. We release new episodes every first and third Wednesday, so be sure to tune in. Want to learn more or stay connected? Visit magdalenhouse.org or find us on social by searching The Magdalen House. The Magdalen House is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit in Dallas, Texas, and every program we offer is possible because people like you choose to give. Thank you for helping us change and save lives.